How to Train Your Dragon, the beginning of a 10-year-long journey. From this one film, an entire franchise was born that spanned into 3 feature-length films, 118 television episodes, and 5 short film animations. When I'm asked, what are some of your favourite films of all time? Some are shocked to find out that the first How to Train Your Dragon film is on there. Well, short answer, How to Train Your Dragon has the perfect hero's journey. So what is the hero's journey? In essence, it breaks down 12 stages a protagonist or hero in a story will go through. It can vary depending on the story at hand and as well as the actual characters themselves, but a lot of modern popular culture follow these stages to some degree. Going through them in this video might highlight how often you actually see these happening in other films, but this video will be looking at the first How to Train Your Dragon film and how utterly perfect this film is using the structure to its maximum potential. It's one of my all-time favourite films and not a single moment is wasted and every scene is woven so well, and what better place to start than the beginning?
This is Berk.
Most films will follow a 3-act structure, and this structure plays naturally into our hero's journey. The purpose of the first act is to set up our world, our characters, as well as the protagonist and their lives before anything changes. We're still in the realm of the known, waiting for the inciting incident that will kickstart the story, as well as begin to hint and foreshadow events that will be important in the third act. Straight off the bat, we visit the ordinary world and establish what life is like for our characters and are introduced to our protagonist. Hiccup Horrendous Haddock III, the less than popular village laughingstock and source of clumsiness and misfortunes. He's never where he should be and always gets himself into trouble, which results in
every time you step outside, disaster falls.
Even his name is a reference to his status within his tribe.
You know it's Viking tradition to call the runt of the litter a hiccup.
Come on, little Hiccup. Oh, hey, Hiccup.
This short but powerful opening shows the audience everything we need to know about Hiccup at this stage in his life and how he's perceived by his father, his village, and his peers. We meet the chief of the tribe, the protector, and the legend that they carry, the mentor, who Hiccup's
Been his apprentice ever since I was little. Well, littler.
And the desire, not only of what Hiccup likes, but what he would like to become like. The first chance Hiccup gets, he runs off to try and bag himself a dragon and begins his call to adventure. From here, Hiccup is answering his call quite literally to try and become a true Viking and to come out of his comfort zone, and stuns himself when he actually traps the most elusive dragon of them all. He doesn't know what to expect as he's never been in this situation before. He only knows what it could do for him. The biggest aspects of why you as an audience member root for Hiccup are that you get to see his goals. Right from the beginning, he just wants to fit in, he wants to make his father proud, he wants his boyhood crush to work out. In most films, you will have your character build a name for themselves. They usually make greatness and become better. They're usually not handed anything, and they have to earn their keep. How to Train Your Dragon plays with this idea, and whilst Hiccup is definitely the underdog of the story and has a lot to learn from his trials and experiences, the film subverts our expectations with him being the son of the most powerful man in Berk, and instead inverts the image of what you as an audience member would perhaps have of the chief's son. It instead shows Hiccup's ineptitude at being what his father would desire and what the village expects from their next chief. This is a boy trying to fit in with his Viking kind, a boy who knows what future lies before him and how he must live up to his father's image.
I can't stop myself. I see a dragon and I have to just kill it, you know? It's who I am, Dad.
Oh, yeah, many things, Hiccup. But a dragon killer is not one of them.
This hero of ours doesn't live up to any of the expectations put before him, and instead creates a new idea that this hero will forge a new destiny for himself as the son of the most powerful man in Berk. This point of Hiccup being the chief's son also raises any of the stakes in the film. Hiccup's actions are put on full blast, and from the opening alone it seems that this is a regular occurrence within Berk. His father sees nothing more than a disappointing son. The village he will one day command see him as nothing but a liability, which Hiccup sums up perfectly later on when he's complaining to Gobba.
Excuse me, barmaid. I'm afraid you brought me the wrong offspring. I ordered an extra large boy with beefy arms, extra guts and glory on the side. This is a talking fish bone.
No, you're thinking about this all wrong. It's not so much what you look like, it's what's inside that he can't stand.
Thank you for summing that up.
Look, the point is, stop trying so hard to be something you're not.
I just want to be one of you guys.
and his peers treat him with disdain, except Astrid, who simply views him more as not fulfilling his duties to the Viking way. But more on her later, as she plays a vital part in Hiccup's journey. Once Hiccup can, he rushes to find the dragon he has brought down, only to find the consequences of his actions. He has now reached the refusal of the call, and he's met his supernatural aide-to-be. He has his opportunity, his chance to seize everything he's ever wanted. Glory is at his fingertips, only for him to instead let the creature go, showing mercy instead, for reasons that will be pivotal in his rebirth later in the film. This incident right here is what kicks the film into motion. This single event defines Hiccup and Toothless's entire relationship. They choose to spare each other, and in turn Hiccup begins to learn that the world he belongs to may not be all it's cracked up to be. In the opening, his clumsiness and inability to fight set him apart from the rest of his village and father, who constantly berate him. But it's in one of the most key scenes in the film, Hiccup shows his humanity and difference as a person by choosing to spare the dragon he's trapped and caused pain to.
I did this.
And in turn possibly gives up his only chance to prove himself to his father and village, something he clearly yearns for, even if he doesn't necessarily want to kill any creatures. Showing his appeal as a protagonist to the audience who have been misdirected by this film's opening, and rooting for him to actually gain the respect of his village by killing a dragon. Instead, our expectations are subverted, and we are instead more satisfied that Hiccup has chosen the option of compassion, rather than what he's been nurtured with his whole life. And this choice to save Toothless, rather than take the glory of killing him, sets the pair on a new adventure, the path of the unknown, and shows us that we are in for quite a ride. But now that our inciting incident has happened, we have reached the end of our first act, and all our major players, plot and world have been appropriately set up. Now we reach...
Oh, what am I going to do with him, Gobber?
Put him in training with the others.
No, I'm serious.
So am I. You can't stop him, Stoic. You can only prepare him. I know it seems hopeless, but the truth is you won't always be around to protect him. He's going to get out there again. He's probably out there now.
From here we begin to delve into the unknown world, and our second act serves to focus on our protagonist and their trials and tribulations. The second act will almost always end at the lowest point of the story. Everything from the point where Hiccup first meets Toothless will lead Hiccup on a journey of discovery that will disprove everything Vikings believe in. Once Hiccup begins questioning himself for shooting Toothless down and sparing him, he is thrust into the very environment he knows he can't be a part of, and his father enrolls him into dragon training when he knows truly now that he cannot kill a dragon. He's given exactly what he previously wanted, but knows he cannot be the person he wanted to be before.
You get your wish. Dragon training. You start in the morning.
Oh man, I should have gone first.
He tries to fight his father on this, but ultimately he can't deny or fight the system he belongs to. Yet.
Dad, I can't kill dragons.
But you will kill dragons.
No, I'm really very extra sure that I won't.
It's time, Hiccup.
Can you not hear me?
It isn't until his hand is forced and he believes the system he's lived in all his life is wrong that he acts for a better outcome, knowing nothing will ever be the same once he does.
Hiccup, we just discovered the dragon's nest. The thing we've been after since Vikings first sailed here. And you want to keep it a secret? To protect your pet dragon? Are you serious?
Yes.
One of the biggest points of this film that makes it so strong is its concrete storytelling. Every scene builds towards the overall narrative, and this second act incorporates its A and B plots seamlessly together by having the two bounce off each other in perfect harmony. Every time we witness or learn from an event in the A plot, this feeds directly into the events of the B plot. Hiccup reluctantly jumps into the world of his dragon training with the help of Gobber. Hiccup has now met his first mentor, one of his guides into the unknown world that he has a lot to learn about. And when he does learn on his first day of training that he was also spared from a dragon as a
Dragon will always go for the kill.
So why didn't you?
His curiosity leads him to wonder why he was shown mercy by the very dragon he trapped and was about to kill. This leads him to discover that this dragon is trapped due to a damaged tail. Once Hiccup starts studying dragons, he discovers just how extensive the knowledge Vikings have discovered over the years is, with the notable exception of the one dragon he knows where to find. His curiosity about why he was spared and what this creature is actually capable of is dialed up to 11. Once questioned about what side he's on, he sets out to find out about this dragon no one seems to know anything about. This leads him to the discovery that if you're not a threat, a dragon will be docile and calm towards you. Our hero begins to see the lie that his society has believed for so long coming undone, and begin his other set of trials with his forbidden friend, and the pair begin to finally see each other as less and less of a threat in this gorgeous scene, and begin the bonding process that will define the pair's relationship throughout the whole series. Hiccup has now met his second mentor without even realizing.
No, it's the wings and the tails you really want. If it can't fly, it can't get away. A downed dragon is a dead dragon.
The moment Hiccup learns he's ruined a dragon's ability to fly and what it means for them to be alive, Hiccup uses his expertise to rectify his mistake and in turn begins his first step to crossing the threshold. He's committed to what he's doing and wants to rectify his mistake of hurting Toothless, and from here the plot begins to really bolt into action. Taking control builds Hiccup's confidence and journey as a hero. We as an audience get to see him in his element and how he has to be the one to atone for his mistake, both due to his ability and conscience, and root for him to succeed. It is from this act to do and be better that Hiccup and Toothless's friendship can really flourish, and we get to see how much these two benefit from each other. Toothless is given his ability to fly once again, going from wary of humans to trusting and gaining a friend, and Hiccup is able to begin becoming his own person, free of any social constraints while also inadvertently changing his public image thanks to secret insider knowledge. The moment this happens is when the plot reaches test allies and enemies. Hiccup has chosen to commit in both his worlds, the world of his training with a dragon and against them. It's here that Hiccup throws himself into the new worlds and finds friendship. In both worlds, he grows alongside Toothless, and his status with his peers and village inadvertently grows in this short but very powerful montage as a result of his meetings with Toothless. With the outcomes of finally becoming his own person and embracing his true strengths and personality, all of this comes together beautifully when Hiccup goes on what composer John Powell calls the test drive.
Okay there, bud. We're gonna take this nice and slow.
He's doing things no Viking could ever dream of. He's built up the confidence to ride a dragon and is about to test the extent of all his efforts to try and help Toothless. This scene perfectly encapsulates all of the trials and journey these two have been on so far, and when the chips are down, Hiccup finally lets go of his crutches and trusts his own instincts, which confirms the confidence he had within himself all this time. It's with the scene after this self-discovery that he learns and accepts the undeniable truth about dragons.
Everything we know about you guys is wrong.
Up until this point, the true antagonists of this film have been the themes, the embodiment of living up to society, being a Viking, being the son of a leader, proving yourself to your village, stepping up to your responsibilities and battling the estranged relationship between a father and son. But besides the big bad at the end of this film, which we'll get to later, the driving forces of these points of conflict for our protagonist come from Stoic and Astrid. The real forces of evil in this story are the inner conflict of our characters, especially Hiccup. Like we saw before, Hiccup's own actions and expectations are what drive this story. For the majority of the film, Stoic and Astrid serve as the catalyst of conflict, and Stoic keeps much of the conflict between father and son, with issues of commitment and responsibility. The things unsaid in their relationship speak volumes to how estranged they are, and it's apparent throughout the film, but especially apparent when Stoic believes that Hiccup's lived up to his expectations. It's still not enough, and these two still can't talk to each other on a personal level. This talk is one of the most important scenes in the film. It proves Hiccup's true indifference towards his father's ideals, and this all comes straight after Hiccup has had his first big step towards becoming his true self in the challenges and temptations part of his journey. He's made his transformation from a Viking to a dragon rider in his heart, mind and soul. He's completed his ultimate trial in self-discovery, flying on instinct, having the confidence to believe in himself and what he can do, and has changed his beliefs for the better. Astrid acts as the other point of conflict within the story. She signifies Hiccup's shortcomings on a personal level. She shows how much Hiccup cannot function on the ground level of the world he lives in and will one day rule. She only ever comments on his failings to come to his calling, a calling she has embraced and trained for her whole life, with no idea of ever changing. It's only once she is challenged by Hiccup with the tricks he is learning throughout the story where you find out how much she despises not being the best. Almost like she doesn't believe he is worthy of the status because of the loser she's seen her whole life. She solely focuses on herself and her duty, but it's only once her chance to prove herself as the best is taken away from her that she takes matters into her own hands to find out why Hiccup has become better. But in doing so, she finds a new view on life in one of the best scenes in the film, hands down. Every part of this sequence conveys everything you need to know. It's stunning, breathtaking, and you get to see in front of your own eyes in 3 short minutes Astrid's entire life philosophy change. Thanks to Hiccup, Astrid grows past her own ambitions and shows how much she can care and grows as a character, and also proves Hiccup's new way of life can work. Her change as a character is just as good as Hiccup's, and further on in the story, she has her own moment of transformation and becomes Hiccup's voice of reason and helper once Hiccup hits rock bottom.
I couldn't.
That's not an answer.
Why is this so important to you all of a sudden?
Because I want to remember what you say right now.
From here, the story has turned one antagonistic force into an ally, but now shows the true extent of what is going on with the side of the conflict the Vikings on Berk have been dealing with. We've reached the approach of the inmost cave. This stage of the journey signifies the hero going to or having the means to go to quote-unquote the villain's lair. This isn't always literal. It could be the doubts the character has in their own minds, the image that they are trying to escape from, but in this case it is quite literal. This film does an amazing job of subverting our expectations of what we believe to be the villains. From the opening narration, we're led to believe that the dragons are the root of all problems in Berk, only for these ideas to be satisfyingly subverted when Hiccup chooses to spare Toothless. And then later on, we're given the satisfaction of what we as an audience were initially promised in this part of the film. The discovery of the Red Death on Dragon Island completes the final question of why these creatures have been invading Hiccup's home. The Queen of the Nest has been forcing them to loot and pillage, and the ones who don't are eaten themselves, giving the final dimension to the dragons in this film for everything they've done. For all their pain and destruction, they've been forced to live like this. Much like Astrid and the rest of the Vikings, they've only ever known one way of life, to hunt and kill, and with this information our hero must make a choice, to continue the agony of the dragons who invade his home, or confront his tribe and their way of life, and try to bring about true change to his home, to show them a better path, as he's shown to Astrid. Ultimately, Hiccup's hand is forced. He's about to face his ordeal. Our hero finally steps up for himself and what he believes in. This will be his greatest challenge yet, and he knows no matter what the outcome, his life will never be the same again. This is the beginning of our hero's transformation, but it can only start with the destruction of his former life. Hiccup tries to show a better path to his village, including his father, throwing away the symbol of who he was, to the horror of everyone there. It all goes wrong due to Stoic's own disbelief of what he's seeing, and Toothless, who's been unable to escape his prison without Hiccup, comes to save him from danger, only to be captured. Toothless trades himself for his friend. The final nail in the coffin for Hiccup truly losing everything are his father's last words to him as he goes to his doom.
You've thrown your lot in with them. You're not a Viking. You're not my son. Ready to shift!
And I'm glad we get to see how much it affected Stoic saying those words out of anger. It shows how much he didn't mean them, but that's something his son will never be able to see, all of which makes Stoic's redemption that much more satisfying in the end. Stoic goes full rage when he finds out about his son's betrayal and goes on one last Hail Mary to solve all of Berk's problems once and for all. Clouded by Hiccup's actions, he's not thinking straight, and when he realises he's bitten off more than he can chew with the threat he's facing, it is too late. From here we've reached the lowest point of the story and the journey, the end of our second act, and as Astrid so eloquently puts it,
It's a mess. You must feel horrible. You've lost everything. Your father, your tribe, your best friend.
Thank you for summing that up.
this is the stage of metamorphosis for our character, the death of the part of Hiccup he has known his whole life. Nothing will ever be the same. This is the fall, his lowest point, and he cannot see where to go from here. But this is where Astrid offers Hiccup his chance of transformation and shows her own true worth, not as a warrior, but instead with her compassion and transformation as her own character. The beauty of this opening to the third act is that to round it off in perfect unison, Astrid begins with the very question Hiccup asked himself at the beginning of the second act.
Why couldn't I have killed that dragon when I found him in the woods? Would have been better for everyone.
Yep, the rest of us would have done it. So why didn't you?
Astrid forces Hiccup to answer to her and ultimately himself. Why did he choose differently? Why did Toothless choose differently? Hiccup introspectively realizes the act of cowardness his father and tribe see in why he chose to spare Toothless's life. An inability to take the chance to solve all his problems are just washed away once he realizes his own humanity and accomplishment in what he has achieved by making the decision that no one else would have in that situation.
300 years, and I'm the first Viking who wouldn't kill a dragon.
First to ride one, though. So...
I wouldn't kill him because he looked as frightened as I was. I looked at him, and I saw myself.
Hiccup has an epiphany, a sudden moment of realization as to the kind of person he has become. And from this realization, he uses what he has learnt on his journey to face the biggest conflict of the story. Hiccup is now reborn from the ashes of his former self and is seizing the sword. He's going to have to use his knowledge and expertise to save his people, the dragons, and his friend, with the motivation and aid from those he's met along his journey. The third and final act of the film serves as the climax, the culmination of the previous two acts. All of the players have been introduced, the stage is set, the world we've just seen will never be the same again, and everything we've learned should come together into one logical conclusion. The final act of a film usually needs a dramatic ending, and this film does well in showing this final evil that Berk has been fighting as one singular dragon that embodies the reasoning and struggle Toothless and the other dragons face in being enslaved, as well as the destruction of Berk's people to allow our two heroes who have come together in symbiosis to save both of their own people and the new people they've come to adopt. And whilst he hasn't shown his ability to lead and strategize in an ordinary sense, he knows what kind of person he really is and inadvertently shows how much like his father he really is, as well as proving his qualities as a leader.
Every bit the boar-headed, stubborn Viking you ever were.
This is Hiccup's atonement. He's reached the road back. He knows this is his world now and his fight. He has to do the right thing and fight for the dragons and his tribe. The final moment of Hiccup's rebirth is this short but powerful conversation Hiccup has with Stoic, who has begun his own transformation. Even when he goes back to save Toothless, he's still hesitant to. He still can't let go of his prejudices, but knows he has to do this for his son and people, but still will never atone for his sins. Stoic concedes in what could be his last conversation with Hiccup and speaks the words every son needs to hear from their father, and the words that clear any and all doubts and internal conflict Hiccup had and give him complete and utter conviction in his actions now.
I'm sorry. For everything.
Yeah, me too.
You don't have to go up there.
We're Vikings.
It's an
occupational hazard.
I'm proud to call you my son.
Thanks, Dad.
With this final fight comes the pair's final test, the resurrection. Everything these two characters have learned and built upon comes together to defeating this big evil, but also nicely concludes all the other points of conflict within the story, such as Hiccup's issues of identity, his relationship with his father, and status among his peers. This is a true moment of symbiosis where the pair fight for everything, striving for an ideal greater than themselves, with the final blow being a moment learnt by Hiccup earlier in the film. With this comes a moment of fear that our protagonists may not be able to save themselves. As a possible final act, Toothless shows his own transformation from dragon distasteful to humans to willing to sacrifice himself for the one he loves the most. The final part of the fight results in a suspenseful scene of wondering if our beloved characters are alive or not, but this scene has another meaning. It wouldn't be enough for Hiccup to succeed and defeat the Red Death and save his tribe and the dragons. Stoic and the others probably still wouldn't be able to accept Hiccup's new way of life and bring it back to Berk. It's only when he thinks his own ill actions have cost him the life of his son that Stoic reaches his lowest point.
I'm so sorry.
Once he finds out he's been given a second chance with his son, just like Hiccup, he throws the symbol of his beliefs away for what he truly loves and holds dear in his life, and finally completes his own transformation of his attitude towards dragons and sees them for the kind creatures that they can be.
Thank you for saving my son.
Well, you know, most of them.
These characters are now about to come full circle for the return of the Elixir. We're back to the known world, changed by the events of what has happened and are ready to move forward. But with this comes a cost, at least in this story. It's very satisfying to see that much like the world Hiccup has returned to, he too is going to have to face a permanent change to his life, a necessary sacrifice for the world he's fought for. Something I only found out very recently was that Steven Spielberg was the one to suggest that Toothless be with Hiccup when he wakes up to deal with his new disability. It just helps illustrate that their relationship is not just between a man and his horse. It's the story of two friends who came together at the right moment in their lives and can share each other's experiences and have become better in heart and soul because of it. They've grown with each other in their lives and they need each other in their lives. The return to the known world leads to a new and exciting world to explore, and this shows that a new perspective has changed Berk for the better.
Turns out all we needed was a little more of this.
You just gestured no of me.
When you write a good story, a desire to see more should feel natural. This film does exactly that. You've just seen the full completion of a character and characters change through their trials and tribulations to discover themselves. But in reality, you've only just scratched the surface of discovering and experiencing their full potential. And this film ends with the stakes of the world our characters live in permanently changed, and a satisfying conclusion that leaves us with a growing hunger to see more.
We have dragons.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to drop a like, comment and subscribe. If you want to see more, check out this video right here.